Hey, I'm Kayla. Welcome back to my channel. Life is too short to read books that you don't enjoy. Today, I'm going to walk you through my physical DNFs. Those are books that I own here that I didn't finish, as well as my Kindle Unlimited and Kindle DNFs. I'm also going to walk you through the books that I got from the library that for some reason or another I never got to. And finally, I'll list out all of the books I probably should have DNF this year, but for one reason or another, I just kept reading and I didn't like. We're going to start off with the books that I own, and thankfully this list isn't too long, but I did have 3 physical books this year that I DNF'd. And I'm going to start with the one that was most disappointing for me, and that is Not in Love by Ali Hazelwood. I've started this copy. I am 35% in to this book, and 30% is kind of the self-imposed number I try to get to before I cast judgment on a book. I like the writing. There are, like, I've tabbed a lot. I was annotating while I was reading my copy. I was originally reading this for a challenge for my YouTube that didn't end up happening. The thing about this book that isn't working for me is my fault, and it's anxiety around work situations, and it's my fault because this is on the back. It is known that there is a potentially hostile takeover of her company, our female main characters, the company she works for. She's really close with her founder, and I don't like that aspect of this book. And every time I picked it up, it was just not making me feel good. So I decided to put it down. I put it down in the summer. Haven't picked it back up. I do think eventually maybe I can get to this one, but it's good to know going into other books that if one of the plots is a work-related drama like this, it's probably not one I should take on. This one is one that I am glad that I own. And I'm glad that I own it because it's a copy of this book that won't be around. But Roman has very strong thoughts about this one as too. This is The Awakening as told by the boys. So this is the retelling of the first book in the Zodiac Academy series. I had a struggle with my full read of the Zodiac Academy series this year because I spent so much time reading it and the ending was disappointing to me. And when I say so much time, I mean like 8,000 pages I read of Zodiac Academy books this year. And so I picked this one up. I read a Solaria reading order. So Solaria is the location in which this book is set. There's a prequel series, there's a post series, there's a few that are set in Solaria, and there's a timeline reading order where you can read all of these books kind of intermingled with each other. So once I got around to this one, I had read 3 books of the Zodiac Academy series, 5 books of the Ruthless Boys series, and I was coming back to this one. And by the time I got there, I just wanted to continue on with the actual Zodiac Academy storyline. I didn't want to go back to a retelling of book 1, especially because if you've read this series, book 1 is pretty painful. So to go back to the most painful parts of this series when I was at a place where I just wanted the story to continue progressing wasn't good for me. I'm only 44 pages into this one. I think it would be really good to do this one as a partner read. I think there is like a tandem reading list in which you read the awakening from the girl's point of view, and that's the only book that is just Tori and Darcy's point of view. Once we get to the second book in the Zodiac Academy series, they open up to the 1,000,012 POVs. By book 9, I mean, goodness gracious, there's 35 POVs. So, back in the simpler times. But yeah, I also really like that this is I think it is. It's a very nice printed copy. I told myself I was going to purchase the last book in the series, Restless Stars, but then I was disappointed by it. So now I don't know what I'm going to do. This is one I could see myself coming back to eventually, but it is definitely not on it's not high on my priority list. And the next physical book that I have is a current DNF, is one that I definitely think I will come back to, and that is Immortal Dark by Tigris Grima. This was my blind date with a book Advent pick, and I saved it for myself to start on Halloween, but then I didn't get that far on Halloween. I think I'm 60 pages in. I don't know why I'm looking at the screen and not just opening the book. I am 60 pages in. Oh, yeah. I even have my little spellbound book mark. I decorated it with stickers because it had like a piece of tape on it. Yeah. This is also another copy of this book it's really pretty. It also has like a big map in the start. I read this for Halloween, like I mentioned, because it was a spooky one, and I didn't get through enough of the beginning to really set the story up, and so I didn't want to go back to it. And then November started, I started reading, I started planning for Vlogmas, and then it was already time to start reading Christmas books. So I think I just started this one too late in the year, knowing that I was like done with spooky season because I don't really like spooky season anyways, and this is a part of a series and we don't know when the second book is coming out. So that really deprioritized this one as a read for me. There's nothing wrong with the 60 pages that I've read of it, but it wasn't enough to make me need to finish it. Like, there are some books this year that I started that I could not walk away from. And then there are other books, I'm thinking of that Lauren Asher book, Love Unwritten. I read that book for like 3 months, 2 or 3 months. I had no urgency to get to the end of the story, but I at least finished that one because it's kind of easy to read. So those were actually the only 3 physical books that I own that I started this year and I did not finish. I do still have quite a few physical books to read around my house. I think behind me, yep, I still have the 4 books left of my Advent. I picked my first book last Thursday. I wasn't ready to start it when I picked it on camera, but it happened. And I actually started it yesterday, which was Tuesday. So I'm about 80 pages into that book. I'm not going to tell you what it is because I want you to go watch my Christmas Advent video, please. And I will let you know when I have a Christmas Advent update for you all. Next, I wanted to talk about the Kindle Unlimited books that I started in DNF for one reason or another. I gotta start off with one that is people's favorite, like absolute favorite, and that is Twisted Love by Anna Huang. I read one of her other series this year, the If Love series, and it was one of my favorites. There are 4 books in it. The first 2 books is about the same female and male main character, and in the first book they're all in study abroad together, and there's like the other friends, and so the other books are interconnected standalones. Oh, the last one is so good, but again, that's the If Love series. I also started the Kings of series. I've read the first 2 books in that one, and those ones were just fine for me, but the Twisted series is the one that people go crazy for. And I tried multiple times to read Twisted Love. I tried it in different like times. Read I got I got to about 50 pages in at one point, and I just kept coming back to this book like, why am I reading it? I don't think that it helped that I was trying to read this one while I was reading the Zodiac Academy books. The way I was reading those was I always had one of them started, and I would just read it when I could. When I got into the book, I would read the Zodiac Academy really heavy, and then I would pop out for a few days and read something else. So I would usually also have a romance book on Kindle Unlimited started so I could, same thing, just read a little romance. And this one I just kept starting, and I would read 5 pages in it and be like, this sucks. And I would pop right back into the Zodiac Academy. And I don't even think it was that I was in such a great place of the Zodiac Academy. I just didn't like either of the characters in this one. So if you are a Twisted Love, Twisted Games, Twisted series person, please, in the comment section, let me know why you love them and why I should give them another shot. Because I want to. Like I said, I loved the one series by Anna Huang, so I don't know why I don't love the popular one. The next up was another popular one that I didn't like, and unfortunately, my friend Carly bought it, so that's one of her physical DNFs of the year, and that is Pucking Around by Emily Rath. I really wanted to like this one. I'm Florida based. The hockey team is like I think they're the Jacksonville Jaguars, Jacksonville something. So they're based in Florida, but unfortunately, when I started this one, I struggled to connect with our female main character. And I really didn't give her a chance. Honestly, I didn't give her much more than I think 3 chapters, and I was just like, no, I can't read this. It is a very long book. It's a reverse harem. Why choose? I think she ends up with like 3 of the guys. And I was like for that, but knowing that's a storyline that I would be for. And I was usually, like typically, I'm ready. But not being able to connect with our female main character just made this book seem like it was going to be such a drag. So I made sure I pulled myself out. I think it didn't help that Carly had started it and she hate read a good bit of it. Like, I think she hate read 200 or 300 pages of it. And I was like, dear God, girl, if it's not working, you gotta quit. get yourself out. So she did end up eventually DNFing. But again, it's really hard to DNF a book that you spent money on, especially one that you thought you were going to like. That one is a really pretty cover. It has glitter on it. It's pretty much a trap. Pretty much a trap. So I know that is like a continued series as well. I think the one I'm going to try that's like that is the Becca Mack hockey series. Consider Me is the first one in that. So I don't know why I'm talking about that in a DNF video because I didn't even start it, so that's fine. This next one was a recommendation that I feel like I picked up on BookTube, and then I downloaded it, kept it on my Kindle for a while, and then similarly to other books, every time I tried to start it, I would read a couple pages and have to quit. I don't know. I don't know when I got to be like a first 25 pages snob, but I did. I think this year I was like, wow, I've spent so many years not reading books. If I'm going to read books this year, I'm going to make sure like I'm reading a ton of books I enjoy. And I'm not going to waste my time. I think that's where I've gotten caught up in the past. I've quit reading because I hit a bad book or I hit a book slump and I'm like, whatever. But making sure I'm reading books I like this year have helped. This book that I DNF'd was Alive at Night by Amelia Reese. I didn't even give this one a shot. and again, maybe I was just trying to read it at night, and then every time I picked it up, I was just so bored. I just didn't want to. I also think this was when I was reading around the time I was reading, or when I tried to read around the time I was reading the Zodiac Academy. So I was just pretty deep in that world. Maybe I will go back and try this one, but I'm sorry. I DNF'd it and I didn't even really give it a chance. Me. Another book I've talked about so many times in so many of these Vlogmas updates. So thank you. You're a real one if you just keep hearing me talk about this book. And it's Shadow and Bone. It's an official DNF, my friends. It is. I might pick it up in the new year. I might not. When I was filming another video earlier, my 25 journaling ideas, your book journaling ideas for 2025, please check that one out. When I was filming that, I was talking about a page you could do about book adaptations that are being turned into movies or television shows. And thinking about it, Shadow and Bone is a Netflix show. I wonder if I want to watch it first. And that's like sacrilege to a lot of the book community, but I don't know if I just need the world to be built for me and then I'm going to want to read it, if that'll help. I think I'm going to consult Hannah on that, who I was supposed to read this with, because she has started watching it. And yeah, maybe that'll help me get through this one, but that is where I'm at. Honestly, there are probably some more books from Kindle Unlimited that I did DNF, but these were the big ones that I had actual reasons to DNF more than just like, wasn't for me. And honestly, not too many. It wasn't too bad. Okay, but now I need to talk about books I should have DNF'd. Again, there's not many, but the ones that were on this list made me mad. I'm going to start with one that was pretty disappointing to me, and that is Truly, Madly, Deeply by LJ Shen. This is the first of her books I've ever read. I know she has a lot of them, but new to me author. The copy of this book is absolutely stunning. It had some pink sprayed edges. I just loved the branding of it. Was super excited to read, especially because the chef in this one is pretty much Carmy from The Bear, and I really appreciated that show. This book was trying to do way too many things, and I think that's what ultimately got to me. The other problem about this book was it was so incredibly unromantic. There was a grief plot that we open up to, and it never really gets developed. It just kind of like hangs over our story, but our like female main character doesn't actually work through any of her grief, which was weird to me. It was truly a plot device to make her have a reason that she has to stay in town. And I was like, you could have, you should, so they, spoiler alert, I guess I'll put a little spoiler. They open the book off and her father has died, and then they make it that's why she has to stay, but then she never has like moments of like grief or like it's weird. It's really weird. And they have like a moment with like her dad, and I don't even remember what the male main character's name was, and all that stuff just felt really weird with the sarcastic story they were trying to tell and the way our characters were. Spoiler over. So yeah, I thought trying to use a grief plot in a book that you're trying to also make like really grungy and witty and comical isn't going to work. It didn't work for me. The male main character, like, he fell first, but he hated how much he loved her, so he's like really mean to her. Oh, and then the spice. I feel like a lot of people talked about the one like spicy scene that they have in the kitchen, and that scene in general, all of the spice in this book was literally just for shock value. It wasn't additive to the story at all. Even the like spice in the beginning of the story, which is like in the prologue, you get the how our characters like know each other and how they get to the place where they're in now. All of it. All of it was there for shock value rather than adding romance to the story. Especially because we have this storyline in which our female main character is terrified of men. She is afraid of men touching her, and it's like a really serious thing that is happening in her life. And so she goes from that to then they have this spicy kitchen scene that's like at his professional restaurant in town, which is a very public place. So for her to go from, and I think this is their first like modern spicy encounter as well. So for her to go from being terrified of men touching her to taking her clothes off in a public place and having very wild intercourse in the kitchen, it just doesn't, like, that was my problem. I felt like every single character that I read was written so inconsistent in this book. I just could not keep up. And it's freaking long. It's in the 500 pages. I don't know if it's 600 pages, but it was way too long. Every part of the story was unromantic. There was no chemistry. There was like a big, to do, get back together at the end of the book, and it sucked. All of it sucked. I went to Goodreads today and I was like reading other people's reviews because I like to read both negative and positive reviews of the books I read just to check in with people. And the positive reviews, I'm just like, did we read the same book? Did we? Did we? Oof. Okay. Another one that I felt like was a super popular romance book that I was super excited to get into when I got back into reading, because when I was like heaviest into reading and I read the most, it wasn't popular. Like people didn't read. There really weren't that many books at, the grocery store. It was like in the era where border stores were closing because everyone thought that ebooks were just gonna take over, and how crazy it's come. I literally was reading an article from last month about how Barnes and Noble are opening more stores this year than they anticipated, and they were already opening more because book sales are up so much. So coming back to reading and having it be just like super popular all over TikTok and what everyone's doing was really cool to me. And I thought I just needed to jump back into what the girlies were reading. Like, what's popular? What's on Book Talk? So one of the first things I read this year was The Things We Never Got Over by Lucy Score. And I felt like I was freaking duped. Like, I was so mad reading that book. I gave it a 2 stars. I'm surprised I gave it a 2 stars because I was so mad. The cover, I think I remember talking about this too. The cover, super, super pretty. But I hated him. It was a wholehearted, I had a him problem, our male main character. And when like I went back, I couldn't actually like pinpoint. I couldn't remember like what specifically he did. There were a couple scenes in my mind. He was like the bar owner. I just hated the way he treated her, like up and down the whole book. So because he gave me so much of the ick, I don't even really remember what I thought of her, which sucks. Ugh, I wish I did, but it was not my fave. I finished it out of a hate read, and hate reading it's not good. It's not good for the soul, So I've heard the rest of the series is a lot better, like a lot better, and I might go back. If you have an argument for why I should continue, I think I've asked this before, so if you've already given me your argument, I'm sorry I didn't take it, but plead again for me. One more time. Should I continue this series, or do I just need to call this one kaput and start with the new Lucy Score series that's coming out next year. Maybe. The next one I should have DNF'd is a Tessa Bailey book. Tessa Bailey is an author that I can't connect with for some reason. I feel like I'm getting duped by her every time I try to read it, and I don't know why. I don't know if it's a lot of these books that I haven't loved are the characters. And so this was Love Her or Lose Her by Tessa Bailey. This was the second book in the Hot and Hammered series. I got it from the library. So I read the first one, which was Fix Her Up, and it was fine. I didn't really like our female main character, Georgie. I think it's Georgie and Travis is the first one. He's a retired baseball player, and she's like, she was the brother's, best friend, brother's little sister. That kind of storyline. So you meet the second couple, the one in Love Her and Lose Her, in the first book. So I was like, all right, I've met them. Let's go. We'll open it up. And it's Dom and Rosie. And they are high school sweethearts that have been married for like 10 years or something. He was in the military and he like came home and just like basically stopped talking to her, and it was weird. Like, it was just a weird one. I didn't like him. He was my main problem in the story. I actually really liked Rosie. I thought she was a strong character. I thought she made some really good decisions. I liked her a lot more than I liked Georgie, the female main character in the first book. But Dom was insufferable. I think I was like 65% through this book, and I was like, I'm not gonna make it. And I should have stopped. But again, because I had already met these characters, I started the series, I just had that extra bit of motivation, so I did finish it. And I think my struggle with Tessa Bailey books is that I struggle to connect with our female main character. Rosie is the best that she's written for me so far, and I'm pretty sure I gave this one 2 stars, so that's not great. I also read Fangirl Down this year. I hated that. Like, I didn't hate it. I had strong feelings about it that weren't good. I also read her holiday novella, which was like a little better. It was Mary All the Way. Yeah. I think I am going to try to read one of her Christmas books. I keep saying I get duped by her and I just keep trying. We'll see if I can get to one of hers that I really actually enjoy. And then finally, I just really want to quickly go through books that I got from the library but I didn't get a chance to read. Most of the reasons behind why I didn't read these books are simply because I didn't have time. Maybe some of them were actually due back, and yeah, I have a lot. I have a lot of reading going on, so these are ones I just could not get to, but a lot of them, honestly, I could see myself re-renting from the library. They're books. They're not going anywhere. The first one I didn't get to was I Kissed Shara Wheeler by Casey McQuiston. I actually reserved that one as a hold, but I just didn't get to it. My June reading ended up really like overstuffed, and it took me a while to get through the other books that I had already started. And then this summer, my library put a bunch of books out that were like royally themed for the new season of Bridgerton. And I got a book called Something in the Air. But again, I couldn't get to it. So I actually ended up reading the last chapter. Which, that's a new psycho thing I've never done before. This was one I picked up and I was like, I will literally never get this again. So why not just like spoil it for myself and see how it ended? And like, honestly, my curiosity was like rewarded. It was not a bad move, something I could see myself doing again. The next is Shadow and Bone. I'm not even going to talk about it, but I did rent it from the library before I knew it was on Kindle Unlimited. A couple of these books actually. The Cruel Prince as well. I rented it from the library and got like the ugliest, most beat up, most disgusting, people were eating with it, like don't even want to know where they brought it, copy home to realize it was just on Kindle Unlimited, so I could just return it. The other two books I have on here are The Burnout by Sophia something. She'll be up here. That one, again, yeah, wasn't a reason I didn't read it. I just didn't have time. And finally, The Love Experiment by Christina Lauren. Christina Lauren books aren't going anywhere, and it'll be waiting for me whenever I'm just ready to binge some of their books. I'm actually shocked by this list. It always feels like you are DNFing more books during the year, I guess, than you actually are, or than I actually was, even if this was the most books I've ever DNF'd ever. I still think it was pretty good. I'm at 95 books read for the year so far. I'm in the middle of that's a funny question. I'm in the middle of 6 different books right now. So I will probably finish a majority of them. I have 4 books behind me. I have 8 books left of my 10 before the end of 2024 list. So we're doing great for the year. But unfortunately, these were the ones that just didn't make it. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope you have a great day.